The group message appeared on my phone at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Beach ceremony moved to this Saturday. So excited everyone's already here. Can't wait to celebrate Jessica's big day. I stared at my screen in my Seattle apartment, my wine glass frozen halfway to my lips. Saturday, as in 4 days from now. As in a completely different date than the June 15th I had marked in my calendar, requested time off for, and booked flights around. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Wait, what? The wedding is this Saturday? I have it down for next weekend. My flight isn't until the 14th. The 3 dots indicating someone was typing appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, my mother's response popped up. Check your email again, sweetie. We sent the update weeks ago. Everyone got it. My stomach dropped as I opened my email and searched wedding. Nothing. No update. No change of plans. Just the original save the date from 8 months ago, clearly stating June 15th. I called my mother's cell. Straight to voicemail. I tried my father. Voicemail. Jessica? Voicemail. My younger brother, Tyler. Voicemail. The panic was starting to set in when another message appeared in the group chat, this time from my Aunt Linda. Can't believe Maya's going to miss her own sister's wedding, but at least the rest of us made it work. I read that message 3 times, each reading making my blood run colder. Made it work. Like this was some scheduling conflict I'd failed to navigate, not a deliberate exclusion I was only now discovering. That's when I noticed something odd about the group chat itself. I scrolled up to see when it had been created. March 15th, 3 months ago. I looked at the member list. Mom, Dad, Jessica, Tyler, Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert, both sets of grandparents, Jessica's fiancé Blake, his parents, Jessica's 3 bridesmaids. 22 people total. 22 people who had apparently been coordinating my sister's wedding in a separate chat for 3 months while I remained in the dark, receiving only the occasional forwarded message to maintain the illusion of inclusion. I opened my laptop and started searching my email more carefully, looking for anything from anyone about the wedding. I found plenty about the original date, but nothing, absolutely nothing, about any change. Then I checked my spam folder, my deleted items, even my archived emails. Nothing. They hadn't forgotten to update me. They had deliberately created a whole separate communication channel specifically to exclude me while pretending everything was normal. My phone buzzed with another message, this time a private text from my mother. Maya, I don't know why you're making such a fuss. Jessica wanted an intimate ceremony and you've been so busy with work lately. We thought you'd appreciate not having to make the trip on such short notice. We can celebrate with you when we get back. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not from sadness, but from a cold, crystallizing rage. They'd planned this. Every smiling family dinner over the past months, every casual mention of wedding plans, every can't wait to see you in Hawaii, all of it had been theater. I took a screenshot of the group chat showing its March creation date. Then I systematically documented every message, every member, every carefully coordinated detail of this 3-month deception. My profession as a senior marketing manager at a major tech firm had taught me the value of documentation, of building a narrative, of understanding exactly how to craft a story that destroys or builds a reputation. They'd forgotten that about me, too, in their eagerness to exclude the daughter who hadn't fit their vision of a perfect family. Jessica's wedding was being held at the Richardson Resort Maui, one of my parents' luxury properties. I knew that resort inside and out. I'd done the marketing campaign for its grand opening 5 years ago before my parents decided my expertise was just social media stuff and hired an expensive agency instead. I knew its systems, its staff, its vulnerabilities, and I knew something else they'd clearly forgotten. I had kept every file, every contact, every piece of access from that project, because that's what good marketing professionals do. My phone kept buzzing with messages in the family group, photos of people arriving in Maui, shots of the resort, excited chatter about rehearsal dinners and welcome parties I wasn't invited to. Each notification was another nail in their coffin, though they didn't know it yet. They thought they were celebrating Jessica's perfect wedding. They thought they'd successfully managed to exclude the problematic daughter without consequence. They thought I would accept their casual dismissal and quietly fade away. I opened a new document on my laptop and titled it Project Reckoning. Then I started making calls, beginning with an old colleague who owed me a significant favor and worked for the Hawaii Tourism Board. By 2 a.m., I had made 17 calls and sent 43 emails. By 4 a.m., I had chartered a private plane departing at 6 a.m. and made reservations I would need. By 6 a.m., I was airborne, my carefully organized digital files backed up in 3 separate cloud locations. They wanted an intimate family wedding without me. They were going to get something far more intimate than they'd ever imagined. And by the time I was finished, they would understand exactly why excluding me had been the worst decision they'd ever made. I landed in Maui at 11:32 a.m. on Thursday, exactly 2 days before Jessica's Saturday wedding. The private charter had cost me $8, money I'd been saving for a down payment on a house, but watching my family's careful deception unravel would be worth every cent. I checked into a boutique hotel 15 minutes from the Richardson Resort, specifically choosing not to stay at my family's property where they might spot me. My first stop was the resort itself, but I didn't enter through the main lobby where my parents might be hosting pre-wedding events. Instead, I drove to the service entrance I remembered from my marketing campaign 5 years ago. Thomas Chen, the operations manager, was still there. I'd made sure of that with a quick LinkedIn search on the plane. He remembered me immediately when I walked into his office. "Maya Richardson, I haven't seen you since the opening campaign. That work you did tripled our bookings for the first year." He had no idea I'd been effectively fired from my own family's business, replaced by an agency that charged 10 times what they'd paid me. "Thomas, I need to ask you about the wedding happening this weekend," I said, sitting across from his desk. His expression shifted slightly, uncomfortable. "Your sister's wedding?" "Yes, it's a beautiful event they've planned." The hesitation told me everything. "Thomas, did my parents specifically tell staff not to mention my sister's wedding to me if I called?" His silence was confirmation enough. "I see. Well, I'm here now, and I need you to pull something for me. The original contracts and payment records for the wedding venue rental. I'm handling some family business matters." Thomas printed the documents without question. Why wouldn't he? I was still a Richardson, and he'd worked with me before. The contracts revealed that my parents had booked the entire resort for the weekend at a family rate of $45, roughly 70% off the normal price. They'd done this by classifying it as a company event rather than a personal celebration, essentially using their business to subsidize Jessica's wedding while writing it off as a corporate expense. I photographed every page. Next, I visited the resort's head of catering, Maria Santos, who I'd worked closely with during the marketing campaign. We'd become genuine friends, and her face lit up when she saw me. "Maya, are you here for your sister's wedding? I was surprised not to see your name on any of the planning emails. This was interesting." "What emails, Maria?" She pulled up her correspondence, showing me months of detailed planning between Jessica, my mother, and the catering team. Not a single message included my email address. But more importantly, the emails revealed something else. Jessica had requested specifically that certain family members not be informed of menu changes or timing updates, and my mother had confirmed, "Maya is very busy with work and doesn't need to be bothered with details." Maria's expression darkened as she realized what she was showing me. "Oh my God, Maya, they deliberately excluded you." I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. "Yes, they did. And Maria, I need another favor. Can you pull the original event proposal versus what was actually ordered?" The discrepancy was staggering. The original proposal my parents had approved was for 150 guests with premium catering, top-shelf bar service, and elaborate floral arrangements, estimated at $85. The actual order was for 50 guests with mid-tier everything. Actual cost around $30. Someone had pocketed a $55 difference, and I had a strong suspicion who. I spent Thursday afternoon meeting with every department head at the resort I'd worked with 5 years ago. The wedding planner confirmed the guest list had been deliberately kept small, and that my name had been specifically removed from the invitation list 3 months ago. The resort manager showed me occupancy records indicating my parents had blocked 30 rooms at the family rate, but only filled 18. The remaining 12 were empty, but still charged to the company as a business expense. The pattern was clear. My parents were using Jessica's wedding as a way to funnel money from their business into their personal accounts while claiming massive tax deductions. By Thursday evening, I had documentation of what appeared to be systematic fraud. Inflated estimates approved by the company, actual lower costs paid to vendors, differences deposited into personal accounts, and everything claimed as legitimate business expenses. 5 years of doing their marketing had given me access to their business systems I'd never relinquished. They'd been so dismissive of my social media work that they'd never thought to revoke my administrative credentials. Friday morning, I made my move. I contacted the 3 largest wedding blogs in Hawaii, all of which I'd worked with during my marketing career. I have an exclusive story about a luxury resort wedding that might interest you, I told each editor. But I need you to send photographers to the Richardson Resort Maui tomorrow at 2 p.m. Trust me, this will be the most talked about wedding of the season. They agreed immediately, knowing my track record for delivering viral content. Then I called my former colleague at the Hawaii Tourism Board, the one who owed me the favor. I need you to schedule a surprise inspection at the Richardson Resort Maui for tomorrow at 1 p.m. Health and safety compliance check. I have reason to believe they're violating occupancy regulations and possibly engaging in fraudulent business practices with their event bookings. He hesitated only briefly before agreeing. I'd once saved his career by catching a major error in a state tourism campaign before it went public. Friday afternoon, I visited a high-end printing shop and had 50 custom programs made for Jessica's wedding. They looked identical to the official programs I'd seen in Maria's office, with one small difference. The inside pages contained a detailed breakdown of the financial fraud I'd uncovered, complete with charts, figures, and copies of the incriminating documents. At the bottom, in elegant script, I'd written, "Congratulations on your intimate family wedding, Jessica. May your marriage be built on the same honesty and integrity as its planning." I also printed 50 custom place cards for the reception dinner. Again, they looked identical to the official ones, but on the reverse side of each card, I'd placed a QR code. Scanning it would take guests to a private website I'd built overnight, a detailed timeline of my exclusion from the wedding, complete with screenshots of the secret family group chat, text messages, and my mother's dismissive responses. The website was titled, "The Richardson Family Guide to Intimate Celebrations, How to Exclude Your Daughter While Stealing from Your Own Company." Friday evening, I returned to the resort under cover of darkness and made my way to the beachfront ceremony site. The wedding planner had left everything set up for a morning review. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, an archway covered in orchids, a runner of rose petals leading to the altar. I didn't touch any of it. Instead, I carefully replaced every single program placed on the chairs with my custom versions. I swapped every place card at the reception tables. I left everything else exactly as it was. The final piece of my preparation came Friday night. I composed an email to the IRS whistleblower division, attaching comprehensive documentation of the fraudulent business expenses I'd uncovered. I set it to send automatically at noon on Saturday, right in the middle of Jessica's ceremony. I also prepared a similar email to the corporate board of Richardson Resort Group. My parents might own the majority of shares, but they still had investors and board members who wouldn't appreciate learning about systematic fraud through an IRS investigation. Saturday morning, I woke at 6 a.m. and put on the bridesmaid dress I'd bought months ago, when I still thought I'd be part of the wedding. I did my hair and makeup exactly as Jessica had specified in the group messages I'd been excluded from. Then I drove to the Richardson Resort and parked in the guest lot, walking calmly through the lobby at 10 a.m., exactly when guests were beginning to gather for the 2 p.m. ceremony. My mother spotted me first. She was standing near the concierge desk in an elegant champagne-colored dress, laughing with Aunt Linda. Her face went white when she saw me, the laughter dying in her throat. "Maya? What are you? How did you—" I smiled pleasantly, the same smile I'd given to thousands of clients in my marketing career. "Hello, Mother. I wouldn't miss Jessica's big day for anything. After all, we're family." My father appeared within seconds of my mother's shocked exclamation, his face cycling through surprise, anger, and something that looked almost like fear. "Maya, this is completely inappropriate. You weren't invited to—" I cut him off smoothly, my voice carrying just enough to reach the cluster of early arriving guests nearby. "Wasn't invited to my own sister's wedding? That's strange, Dad, because I have the original save the date right here on my phone, June 15th. Funny how the date changed in a group chat I mysteriously wasn't part of." Aunt Linda's expression shifted from confusion to understanding, then to horror as she realized what she was hearing. Other guests were beginning to notice the commotion, phones emerging from purses as people sensed drama. My mother gripped my father's arm, her knuckles white. "David, handle this. Get her out of here before Jessica sees." But it was too late for that. Jessica came down the main staircase in her rehearsal outfit, her hair already styled for the ceremony, and froze when she saw me standing in the lobby in a bridesmaid dress she'd never asked me to wear. "What the hell are you doing here?" Jessica's voice was sharp, cutting through the murmur of gathered guests. I turned to face my sister, taking in her perfect makeup, her designer dress, the fury in her eyes that she didn't bother to hide. "I'm here for your wedding, Jess. Isn't that what sisters do?" She descended the rest of the stairs quickly, her fiancé Blake trailing behind looking utterly confused. "You were deliberately not invited. Mom explained everything to you. This is my day, and you're not going to ruin it with your victim complex. The words landed exactly as she intended them to, as a public dismissal designed to paint me as unstable and attention-seeking. Several guests gasped softly, and I could see phones being raised to capture the confrontation. Perfect. My victim complex, I repeated calmly, loudly enough for everyone to hear. Is that what we're calling it when your family creates a secret group chat to plan your wedding without you? When they deliberately give you the wrong date to ensure you can't attend? When your own mother tells you that you're too busy with work to be bothered with your sister's celebration? Jessica's face flushed red, but before she could respond, the resort manager appeared at my father's elbow, looking agitated. Mr. Richardson, I apologize for the interruption, but there's a state inspector here demanding to see our event permits and occupancy documentation for today's wedding. They're saying it's a mandatory compliance check. I watched my father's face drain of color. He knew exactly what that inspection would find. The fraudulent booking practices, the empty rooms charged as occupied, the discrepancy between approved budgets and actual costs. My mother tried to salvage the situation, turning to address the growing crowd of guests. Everyone, I apologize for this family drama. Maya has been going through some personal struggles, and we thought it would be best if she took some time for herself, rather than attending such a stressful event. Clearly, we underestimated her need for attention. The gasps were louder now, and I saw several guests exchange uncomfortable glances. My mother had just publicly labeled me as mentally unstable in front of 50 people and anyone filming on their phones. Personal struggles, I said, pulling out my phone and opening the screenshots I'd prepared. Is that what you call documentation? Because I have 3 months of messages from a family group chat I wasn't included in. I have emails to vendors specifically requesting my exclusion. I have text messages from you, Mother, telling me I should be grateful not to have to make the trip on such short notice, even though you never actually told me the trip was on short notice until the day everyone was already here. I began airdropping the screenshots to every iPhone in range, watching as phones around the lobby buzzed with incoming files. Blake finally spoke up, his corporate lawyer instincts apparently kicking in. This is harassment, Maya. You're disrupting a private event and distributing what could be considered private family communications. I suggest you leave before we call the police. I laughed, and the sound was genuinely amused. Please do call the police, Blake. I'd love to have officers here when the state inspector finishes reviewing the fraudulent business expenses being claimed for this wedding. Did Jessica tell you that your celebration is being funded through corporate fraud? That your future in-laws have been systematically stealing from their own company? The lobby fell completely silent. Jessica's mouth opened and closed, no sound emerging. My father took a threatening step toward me, and I pulled out my phone again. I wouldn't, Dad. I've got 3 photographers from major wedding blogs arriving in. I checked my watch. Approximately 90 minutes. Specifically invited to cover what I promised would be the most talked about wedding of the season. And I've already sent comprehensive documentation of your fraud to the IRS and the Richardson Resort Group Board of Directors. The emails were set to deliver at noon. That's in 37 minutes. My mother made a strangled sound, gripping my father's arm so hard I could see her nails digging into his sleeve. You wouldn't. Maya, you wouldn't destroy your own family's business over a misunderstanding about a wedding invitation. I met her eyes directly, letting her see the absolute absence of sympathy in my expression. You destroyed our family the moment you created that secret chat. You destroyed it when you spent 3 months lying to my face. You destroyed it when you publicly called me mentally unstable rather than admit what you'd done. I'm just making sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people you really are. The state inspector emerged from the back offices with the resort manager, both looking grim. Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, I need you to come with me immediately. We've found significant discrepancies in your occupancy reporting and event documentation. My father started to protest, but the inspector held up a hand. Sir, this is not optional. We have evidence of potential fraud that requires immediate investigation. If you refuse to cooperate, I'll have to involve law enforcement. Jessica grabbed my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. You psychotic bitch. This is my wedding day. My one perfect day. And you're destroying it because you're jealous that Mom and Dad have always loved me more. I pulled my arm free, leaving small crescent marks where her nails had been. This isn't about jealousy, Jessica. This is about consequences. You wanted an intimate family wedding without the problematic daughter? Congratulations. You got exactly what you asked for. Tyler appeared then, my younger brother who'd been conspicuously silent throughout the confrontation. Maya, come on, this has gone far enough. Can't we just talk about this like adults? I turned to him, remembering every family dinner where he'd sat silently while I was criticized. Every holiday where he'd benefited from being the uncomplicated son while I was the difficult daughter. You knew, Tyler. You were in that group chat for 3 months and never once told me. You watched them plan this deliberate exclusion and said nothing. So no, we're not going to talk about this like adults. We're going to let this play out exactly as you all planned, just with an audience you didn't anticipate. At exactly noon, my phone pinged with confirmation that both emails had been sent. Within minutes, my father's phone began ringing insistently, then my mother's, then Jessica's. The Richardson Resort Group board members were calling, demanding explanations. The IRS was sending automated acknowledgement of the whistleblower report. And somewhere in the resort, 3 wedding bloggers were checking in, ready to document what they'd been promised would be an unforgettable event. The ceremony was scheduled to begin in 2 hours. The guests were all gathered, programs distributed, place cards arranged, everything perfect except for the small detail that the bride's family was now being investigated for fraud, and the wedding itself was the evidence. I looked at Jessica, at her perfect dress and perfect hair and perfectly shattered expression, and felt absolutely nothing. "Enjoy your intimate celebration," I said, turning to walk away. "I hope it's everything you dreamed it would be." I positioned myself at the resort's beachfront bar with a clear view of the ceremony site, ordered a Mai Tai, and settled in to watch the disaster unfold. At 1:15 p.m., the 3 wedding photographers I'd invited arrived: Casey Morrison from Hawaii Wedding Weekly, David Chen from Luxury Island Ceremonies, and Rebecca Oahu from Pacific Bridal Magazine. I'd worked with all of them during my resort marketing days, and they trusted my judgment about newsworthy events. Casey spotted me first and came over, camera already around her neck. "Maya Richardson, you promised me the most talked about wedding of the season. I'm seeing a lot of very stressed-looking people, and what appears to be a state inspection happening in the middle of setup. Want to tell me what's really going on?" I took a sip of my drink and smiled. "Read the programs when they hand them out. Check the QR codes on the place cards. And keep your camera ready. I have a feeling there's going to be some very memorable moments in about 45 minutes. The ceremony was supposed to start at 2 p.m., but by 1:45, it was clear that timeline was falling apart. My father was still closeted with the state inspector and the resort's legal team. My mother was on her phone, her voice carrying across the beach in increasingly frantic tones as she tried to placate board members demanding explanations. Jessica stood near the ceremony arch, her makeup starting to run as she cried, while Blake attempted to console her with visible discomfort. At 1:50 p.m., guests began taking their seats, picking up the programs I'd carefully replaced. I watched as people opened them, saw the initial confusion, then the widening eyes as they read the detailed financial breakdown inside. Whispers spread through the assembled crowd like wildfire. Phones emerged again as guests photographed the explosive contents, sharing them in real time on social media. Casey, David, and Rebecca were circulating through the crowd, capturing reactions, the photographer's instincts recognizing a story far bigger than a simple society wedding. Jessica finally noticed what was happening when her bridesmaid Amanda rushed over, program in hand, face pale. I couldn't hear the conversation from my position at the bar, but I watched Jessica snatch the program, read it, and let out a scream that echoed across the beach. She spun around, scanning the crowd until her eyes locked on me sitting calmly at the bar. She started marching in my direction, her white rehearsal dress billowing behind her, fury radiating from every step. "You fucking bitch!" Jessica screamed as she reached me, loud enough that every conversation on the beach stopped. The photographers swung their cameras toward us, capturing every moment. "You put lies about our family in the wedding programs? You're trying to destroy Mom and Dad's business with fake fraud allegations? What is wrong with you?" I set down my Mai Tai and looked at her with the same pleasant expression I'd maintained all day. "Jessica, those aren't lies. They're publicly available corporate documents. The actual contracts versus the approved budgets, the occupancy records, the personal account deposits. All facts. If the truth destroys the business, that's not my fault, it's theirs." Blake appeared behind Jessica, trying to pull her away. "Jess, come on. Don't engage with her. Let's just start the ceremony and deal with this later." But Jessica shook him off, her face contorted with rage. "No, she doesn't get to do this. This is my day, my wedding, and she's ruining it because she's a jealous, pathetic loser who can't stand that I'm happy." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you think this is about? Your happiness?" "Jessica, I truly don't care about your happiness. What I care about is the fact that you, Mom, and Dad spent 3 months deliberately excluding me from your life while pretending everything was normal. And when I discovered it, Instead of apologizing, Mom publicly called me mentally unstable. "Because you are!" Jessica shrieked, gesturing wildly. "Normal people don't crash weddings they weren't invited to. Normal people don't try to destroy their own family. You're insane, Maya, and everyone can see it." I stood up slowly, maintaining eye contact with my sister. "Everyone can see the programs, Jessica. Everyone can scan the QR codes on their place cards. By now, half your guests have visited the website showing exactly how I was excluded. They've seen the screenshots of the secret group chat. They've read Mom's dismissive messages. The only thing everyone can see clearly is what kind of family you come from." A guest's voice cut through the tension. Aunt Linda, holding up her phone with the QR code website displayed. "Patricia, is this true? Did you really create a separate group chat to exclude Maya from Jessica's wedding planning?" My mother rushed over, her face flushed. "Linda, don't be ridiculous. Maya is twisting everything to make herself look like a victim. She's always done this ever since she was a child, creating drama to get attention." I pulled out my phone and held it up, showing the family group chat with its March 15th creation date clearly visible. "These are screenshots from my phone, Mother. They're time-stamped and geotagged. Anyone who wants to verify them can do so. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just showing people the receipts." More guests were standing now. Programs open. Phones out. The carefully orchestrated, intimate celebration devolving into chaos. The wedding planner appeared, looking desperate. "Mrs. Richardson, we need to make a decision. The ceremony was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. Do you want me to proceed or should we postpone?" My mother looked around at the assembled guests, at the photographers capturing every moment, at the programs revealing her fraud, at me standing calmly at the bar having orchestrated the complete destruction of her daughter's wedding day. "This ceremony is canceled!" Jessica suddenly screamed, ripping the floral crown from her head and throwing it on the sand. "I'm not getting married in front of people who think my family are criminals. I'm not starting my marriage with this psycho trying to destroy everything." She turned on Blake. You're just standing there. Why aren't you defending me? Why aren't you throwing her out?" Blake looked profoundly uncomfortable, his lawyer's mind clearly recognizing the legal implications of everything he was hearing. "Jess, I think we need to talk privately about some of this information. The business practices your parents have been using, not you too." Jessica was fully hysterical now, mascara streaming down her face. "I don't care about business practices. I care about my wedding that my sister is destroying because she's a vindictive bitch." Casey Morrison was beside me suddenly, her camera lowered. "Maya, I need a comment for my article. This is going to be a huge story. Richardson Resort Group fraud exposed at owner's daughter's wedding. Do you want to make an official statement?" I looked directly into her camera as she raised it again. "My only statement is this. Actions have consequences. My family chose to exclude me deliberately and systematically. When confronted, they chose to lie publicly about my mental health rather than take responsibility. This is simply the natural result of their own choices." My father finally emerged from the resort, the state inspector beside him, his face gray. He took in the scene, the canceled ceremony, the crying bride, the guests with their phones out, the professional photographers documenting everything. His eyes found mine across the beach, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in his expression, real, genuine fear of what I'd done and what was still coming. The resort manager was speaking urgently into his radio, and within minutes, hotel security appeared, though they looked uncertain about what exactly they were supposed to secure. Rebecca from Pacific Bridal Magazine approached Jessica, microphone extended. "Ms. Richardson, can you comment on the allegations in these programs? Are you aware of the financial discrepancies between your wedding's approved budget and actual costs?" Jessica lunged at Rebecca, and only Blake's quick intervention prevented her from physically attacking the reporter. "Get out! All of you get out! This is a private event." But it wasn't private anymore. It was the most public disaster in Richardson family history, and it was all being captured in real time. At 2:47 p.m., the first social media posts went viral. Casey's preliminary article titled, "Paradise Lost, Richardson Resort Wedding Descends into Fraud Allegations and Family Warfare" had been shared over 3,000 times. Images of Jessica's meltdown, of my calm presence at the bar, of the explosive programs were spreading across Instagram, Twitter, and wedding-shaming forums. By 3:15 p.m., local news vans were pulling into the resort parking lot, having picked up the story from social media. I finished my Mai Tai, left $40 on the bar, and walked past my devastated family toward the parking lot. My mother tried to grab my arm as I passed. "Maya, please, stop this. We can fix this if you just stop. I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face, and saw absolutely nothing that looked like genuine remorse. Only fear of consequences and desire for damage control. There's nothing to fix, Mother. Everything I've revealed is true. The fraud happened, the exclusion happened, the lies happened. I'm not creating problems. I'm just making sure everyone knows about the problems you created. Jessica's final scream followed me across the parking lot. I hate you. I hope you die alone and miserable. I didn't turn around, didn't respond. Just got in my rental car and drove away from the Richardson Resort for what I knew would be the last time. Behind me, my sister's perfect, intimate wedding lay in ruins. My parents faced IRS investigation and potential criminal charges, and 50 guests were posting their eyewitness accounts of the most spectacular wedding disaster they'd ever seen. And I felt nothing but satisfied. The fallout was spectacular and swift. By Sunday morning, Richardson Resort wedding disaster was trending on 3 different social media platforms. Casey Morrison's full article had been picked up by major news outlets, complete with the programs I'd created and screenshots from my exclusion website. The photos of Jessica's meltdown and my calm presence had become instant memes, with captions like, "When you bring receipts to a wedding," and "This is what consequence looks like in a white dress." The IRS moved faster than I'd anticipated. By Monday afternoon, federal agents arrived at Richardson Resort Group headquarters in Portland with a warrant to seize financial records. My parents' personal and business accounts were frozen pending investigation. The corporate board held an emergency meeting and voted to place both my parents on immediate administrative leave. My father's carefully built empire, 3 luxury resorts across Hawaii and Oregon worth an estimated $40 million, was now under federal investigation with his name attached to potential criminal fraud charges. Jessica and Blake postponed their wedding indefinitely. According to Tyler, who called me Tuesday night in a desperate attempt to get me to make this stop, Blake was reconsidering the entire engagement. His law firm had made clear that being connected to a family under federal investigation for fraud was not compatible with his partnership track. "He's probably going to leave her," Tyler said, his voice thick with anger. "Are you happy now? You've destroyed Jessica's wedding, her engagement, Mom and Dad's business, everything. Was it worth it, Maya?" I was sitting in my Seattle apartment, glass of wine in hand, watching the evening news feature a segment about the scandal. "You mean, was it worth exposing systematic fraud that's been happening for years? Was it worth revealing that my family deliberately excluded me and then publicly lied about my mental health to cover it up?" "Yes, Tyler. It was absolutely worth it." He hung up on me. We haven't spoken since. The wedding blogger's articles generated unprecedented engagement. Casey's piece alone had over 300,000 views within a week, with comments overwhelmingly supporting my actions. "This is what happens when you mess with the wrong daughter," read one highly upvoted comment. "The family made their bed with fraud and lies. Now they get to sleep in it." Pacific Bridal Magazine's article focused on the trend of family exclusion and toxic wedding culture, using my story as a cautionary tale. I was contacted by 3 separate podcasts wanting to interview me about the experience. The state of Hawaii fined Richardson Resort Maui $175,000 for occupancy violations and fraudulent business practice claims. The resort's luxury certification was suspended pending a full audit. Booking cancellations flooded in as the scandal spread. Nobody wanted their destination wedding associated with fraud and family warfare. By the end of June, the Maui property's revenue had dropped 67%. The Portland and Kauai locations weren't far behind as the Richardson name became toxic in the luxury hospitality industry. My mother made one final attempt to reach me 3 weeks after the wedding disaster. She showed up at my apartment building in Seattle unannounced, looking a decade older than the last time I'd seen her. Building security called up to ask if I'd accept the visitor. "Tell her I'm not available," I said, "and tell her that any future contact attempts will be considered harassment." I watched from my window as she got back into her car, shoulders slumped in defeat. I felt nothing. The federal investigation expanded in July when IRS auditors discovered the fraud wasn't limited to Jessica's wedding. They found 5 years of systematic expense inflation, personal purchases claimed as business costs, and funds diverted from corporate accounts into offshore holdings. My initial whistleblower report had opened a door to far more extensive criminal activity than I'd even known about. My father faced potential prison time. My mother faced conspiracy charges. Jessica tried a different approach. She created a public Instagram post calling me a mentally disturbed individual who couldn't handle not being the center of attention, and claiming I'd fabricated evidence to destroy an innocent family. The post was shared widely, until people started commenting with links to the actual financial documents I'd provided, the screenshots of the exclusion chat, and the news articles about the federal investigation. Her comment section became a graveyard of people calling out her lies. She deleted the post within 6 hours, but screenshots lived forever. In August, Blake officially ended his engagement to Jessica. The announcement was brief and corporate. After careful consideration, Blake Morrison and Jessica Richardson have decided to end their engagement and go their separate ways. They request privacy during this difficult time. According to mutual acquaintances, Blake had discovered Jessica knew about the fraudulent expenses and had been actively benefiting from them. She'd lost her perfect wedding, her fiancé, and her reputation in 4 months. The financial impact on my family was catastrophic. The IRS seized assets to cover back taxes and penalties. The Richardson Resort Group's valuation plummeted from $40 million to roughly $8 million as investigations continued and bookings evaporated. My parents were forced to sell the Kauai property at a massive loss just to cover legal fees. They downsized from their Portland estate to a modest condo, their social circle evaporating as fraud charges loomed. In September, I received a registered letter from my parents' attorney offering a settlement. They would drop all claims that I defamed them and admit to the fraudulent practices if I would agree to ask the IRS to show leniency in their prosecution. I wrote back with a single sentence. I have no control over federal investigators' decisions, and even if I did, I wouldn't use it to help you. I never heard from their attorney again. By October, mainstream media had picked up the story. A major newspaper ran a feature titled, "When Family Businesses Go Wrong, the Richardson Resort Scandal," that detailed not just the fraud, but the family dysfunction that enabled it. I was interviewed extensively, providing the complete timeline of my exclusion, the discovery of the fraud, and my decision to expose it all. The article portrayed me exactly as I wanted. Not as a vindictive daughter, but as a whistleblower who'd chosen truth over toxic family loyalty. Jessica lost her job at a boutique marketing firm after the scandal made her unemployable in any reputation-sensitive industry. Nobody wanted to hire the daughter of federal fraud defendants, especially one who'd been publicly connected to the schemes. She moved back in with my parents in their downsized condo, 3 adults trapped together in their shared humiliation. Tyler sent me a bitter message. "I hope you're proud. You've destroyed everything." I didn't respond because I was, in fact, proud. The 3 wedding photographers who documented Jessica's disaster saw their careers soar. Casey Morrison's article won a regional journalism award for investigative reporting. She sent me a bottle of expensive champagne with a note. "Thank you for the story of a lifetime. You're a legend." I displayed the bottle prominently in my apartment. Unopened. A trophy of my family's downfall. December brought the conclusion I'd been waiting for. The federal investigation concluded with criminal charges filed against both my parents: tax fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. They faced up to 15 years in prison each if convicted. Their first court appearance was scheduled for January. I didn't attend, but I watched the news coverage of them entering the courthouse, looking diminished and defeated, hounded by photographers and reporters asking if they regretted excluding their daughter from the wedding. The family that had excluded me so carefully, that had created a secret chat to plan around me, that had publicly questioned my mental health, rather than admit their lies. That family was now destroyed. Their business in ruins, their reputations shattered, their futures defined by legal battles and potential imprisonment. And it had all started because they couldn't be bothered to include me in a wedding invitation. I changed my phone number in early January. I wanted no possibility of reconciliation, no desperate calls from jail, no final attempts at manipulation. The Richardson family had made their choice when they created that WhatsApp group without me. Now they could live with the consequences of that choice for the rest of their lives. It's been 18 months since Jessica's wedding disaster, and I'm sitting in my new corner office at a major tech company where I was just promoted to director of marketing. The salary increase was substantial, $140 $1,000 base plus bonuses, and came with the recognition I'd deserved for years. Turns out that successfully exposing corporate fraud and handling a massive media scandal with perfect professionalism makes you very attractive to companies that value integrity and crisis management skills. My parents pleaded guilty to reduced charges in March. My father got 4 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $3 million in restitution. My mother got 18 months and $800 in restitution. Richardson Resort Group was sold to a hospitality conglomerate for $2 million. Barely enough to cover their debts and legal fees. The family business my father spent 30 years building was dismantled in an afternoon of bankruptcy proceedings. I sent myself a calendar reminder for his release date 4 years from now, so I can make sure my restraining order paperwork is ready. Jessica works at a Target now. I know this because one of my former colleagues saw her stocking shelves in Portland and sent me a photo. She's gained weight. Her hair has lost its expensive salon sheen, and according to my colleague, she looked completely dead inside. She lives alone in a studio apartment, her social media accounts either deleted or set to private, her circle of society friends having evaporated the moment the scandal broke. Blake married someone else, a lawyer from his firm, 6 months ago. Jessica wasn't invited to the wedding. Tyler tried to rebuild a relationship with me last month. He sent a long email explaining that he understood now why I'd done what I did, that he'd been blind to the family's toxicity, and that he hoped we could move forward. I read it twice, then blocked his email address. He'd had 3 months of secret planning and thousands of opportunities to tell me the truth about Jessica's wedding. His understanding came too late and meant too little. My parents' attorney contacted me last week about whether I'd be willing to provide a character reference for my mother's parole hearing next year. I responded with a detailed email explaining that not only would I not provide a reference, but if called to testify, I would explicitly state that she showed no genuine remorse, only fear of consequences. I attached the original screenshots of her calling me mentally unstable and her dismissive messages about me being too busy for the wedding. The attorney hasn't contacted me again. The wedding blogs still occasionally reference the Richardson wedding disaster as the ultimate cautionary tale about family dysfunction and toxic celebration culture. Casey Morrison's original article has been viewed over 800 times and is now used in journalism classes as an example of effective investigative reporting through unexpected sources. I'm credited as a whistleblower in 3 separate case studies about corporate fraud in family businesses. I went on 2 of those podcast interviews and was completely honest about feeling zero regret. They made a choice to exclude me deliberately and maliciously, I said on the Toxic Family Recovery podcast. They made another choice to lie publicly, rather than admit what they'd done. I simply made sure everyone knew the truth about those choices. If the truth destroyed them, they destroyed themselves. The episode went viral, downloaded 250,000 times in 2 weeks. My social life is thriving in ways it never did when I was trying to maintain a relationship with my toxic family. I've made genuine friends who value honesty and loyalty, qualities my blood relatives never actually possessed. I started dating someone seriously, a woman named Adrienne who works in corporate ethics and actually admires what I did. You chose truth over false peace, she told me on our 3rd date. That takes real courage. We've been together 8 months now and just moved in together. Last month, I ran into Aunt Linda at a professional conference. She tried to approach me, probably to deliver some guilt trip about family forgiveness. I turned and walked in the opposite direction without acknowledgement. She called after me, "Maya, please, your mother is suffering so much in prison." I didn't turn around, didn't slow down, didn't give her the satisfaction of any response. My mother's suffering is exactly what she earned. The most satisfying moment came in June when I received notification that my IRS whistleblower claim was being approved for an award. 15% of the recovered funds from the Richardson fraud case. The calculation is still being finalized, but estimates suggest I'll receive somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000. I'm using part of it to fund a scholarship for young women in marketing who've been dismissed or undermined by family members in business. It's called the Richardson Truth Teller Scholarship. And yes, I deliberately used my family name, so every recipient will know exactly where the money came from. Jessica sent me a handwritten letter 3 months ago that reached me through my old address being forwarded. It was 6 pages of anger, grief, and blame, calling me every variation of destroyer of families she could think of, claiming I'd ruined her life over a simple misunderstanding, demanding I fix what I'd broken. I read it once, scanned it for my records, then burned the physical copy in my fireplace while drinking very expensive champagne. I documented the burning on my private Instagram where only my close friends could see. The caption read, "Closure looks like ashes. I never lie awake wondering if I went too far." I never questioned whether the punishment exceeded the crime. They didn't just forget to invite me to a wedding. They spent 3 months systematically excluding me while maintaining an elaborate deception. They lied to my face repeatedly, and when confronted, they chose public character assassination over private accountability. Every single consequence they faced was directly traceable to their own documented actions. My office has a wall of achievements now. My promotion announcement, framed copies of the major articles about the scandal, my journalism award for Casey Morrison's piece, and a printed screenshot of my parents' guilty plea. Colleagues who ask about it get the full story. I don't hide what I did. I'm proud of it. The wall is labeled Consequences in elegant lettering. The Richardson family will spend the next decade climbing out of the hole they dug through fraud and lies. My father will be 62 when he's released from prison, his reputation permanently destroyed, his business legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. My mother will emerge from prison to find her social standing obliterated and her daughter working at Target. Jessica will spend her 30s recovering from the complete demolition of her perfect life. Tyler will live knowing his silence enabled all of it. And I'll spend that same decade building an increasingly successful career, enjoying my relationship with Adrian, funding scholarships in my family's name that serve as permanent reminders of their downfall, and sleeping perfectly soundly every single night. They wanted an intimate family celebration without me. They got a very public family destruction because of me. I call that justice served exactly as it should be. Sometimes people ask if I miss having a family. I tell them the truth. I miss the idea of family I thought I had, but I don't miss the reality of what they actually were. And I'm building something better now. A chosen family based on actual integrity, rather than shared DNA and mutual deception. The Richardson family made their choice when they created that secret group chat. They reinforced that choice with 3 months of lies. They sealed their fate when they chose public humiliation of me over private accountability for themselves. I simply ensured they understood that choices have consequences, and some consequences last forever. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat, and I'd do it exactly the same way.